I love these kinds of rifles, especially in Call of Duty games. Forget about the automatic machine guns with their wild inaccuracy and tiny damage stats. Give me the M1 Garand or the Kar 98 any day, with their loud bangs and their one-hit headshots and the pump action reloads. That nice ching sound when the clip runs empty, and where you reload with those lovely exposed 5-bullet magazine thingies. I rate my Call of Duties based on how satisfyingly and how frequently they let me use this kind of weapon. Luckily, CSGO gets one step closer to being that kind of game, now that the AWP's clip has been recently halved, down from 10 slugs per clip down to just 5 pellets per cartridge. What kind of difference will this make? Well, for a start you might need to reload it now, since you could survive for long enough during a round to actually deplete its drum. Remember, you still have 30 bang bangs in reserve, so while you still have 5 fewer shells than you did previously, you still get 35 chances per round to potentially one-hit kill an enemy. So I think you'll still struggle to run out entirely, but reloading will definitely be more of a thing with this weapon now. I'm probably the least affected by this sort of change, firstly because I'm normally dead before I can fire off 5 shots at an enemy, and second because I'm the paranoid sort who, even before this update, would reload whenever I had the chance, even if I still had 9 bullets left. But I'm going to take a look at some of the best AWP plays of all time to see which of these would have been ruined had the weapon only contained 5 bullets at the time. So what I found was that there were 3 different sorts of plays. The first is the clips which are just a few shots long, but where they're high impact shots. As fewer than 5 shots are fired, these are unlikely to have been affected by this update. An example of this would be Simple here on Dust 2, defending the planted bomb with 4 well-placed AWP shots in quick succession. The AWP change wouldn't have prevented this from happening, but would have put more pressure on Simple once he was down to just 1 or 2 shots left before needing to reload. But something tells me that Simple wouldn't have batted an eyelid in this instance, even with just 5 bullets per clip in his AWP. Another example of these high-impact, few-shotted plays is this one, with Fallen up against FaZe on Train. His AWP play was well timed to disrupt the defence, and with just 2 shots he shut down a 4 CT strong defuse attempt. What is interesting to note is that, even in this instance, the AWP change may have resulted in an extra reload, because much earlier on in the round he fired a shot near long A, and then had to walk all the way back around the map. Despite all this free time, he didn't bother reloading, presumably because 9 is still a big number. And this isn't the only time I saw this happening. In a number of the plays I analysed, pros didn't reload even after having fired a shot, because like I said, 9 is still a very big number. Much bigger than 4. So this update may encourage AWP players to take a few seconds longer to find some cover and to reload, even after having just fired 1 or 2 shots, simply to ensure that they enter the next fight with as many bullets in the chamber as possible. So obviously, while Fallen still had 9 bullets left in the AWP at this point, I reckon that had he started with just 5, then he'd have taken the time to reload at some point. Now the second sort of clips are long drawn out affairs, which maybe last several different encounters in the same round. With hindsight, they might not have needed to reload, even with just 5 bullets per magazine, but they don't know that at the time, so the chances are, as they reach just 1 or 2 bullets left, they'll be considering timing out and retreating to somewhere safer to reload, just in case. You can see that in this clip of Woxic defending A site of Inferno, he does end up firing off 6 bullets, which wouldn't have been possible post-update. But he definitely had the time between shots to reload, had he known with hindsight what was going to happen and when, which is obviously knowledge he doesn't have at the time. So given the high pressure situation he found himself in this instance, where enemies could poke out from anywhere at any time, I think this is one such example of an ace that wouldn't have occurred post-AWP update. That being said, I don't think it matters too much in this instance. The last enemy revealed his location with a flash, so I think Woxic could easily have run off to safety and reloaded. And with his 4 teammates still alive, their chances of winning the round regardless would still have been very good. But maybe this is an iconic ace that wouldn't have occurred were the AWP's magazine capacity nerfed before this match happened. Another ace I'm unsure about is this one with Chris J on Mirage. He manages an ace in 5 shots, but having already fired off 1 bullet at the start of the round, it would have seriously messed this ace up had the AWP only had 5 bullets in the first place. Like I said, I expect we'll see a lot more players reloading after even just 1 fired shot at the start of the round, like in this instance here, for reasons this clip makes obvious. In this recent video of mine, I conveniently talked about which reloading sounds the enemy can hear. They can't hear the small reload between every AWP shot, but they can hear the big reload you make to replenish your entire magazine. So this is another reason why players may choose not to reload, even if they have the opportunity to do so, because it could reveal their position to close by enemies. Just something to bear in mind, as it is another thing that's going to be more of a thing post-AWP update. While I can detail the things I'm unsure about, I'm afraid that this video is going to remain a bit uncertain about the feasibility of most of the clips that I show, were they done post-update, with this play by Nifty being no exception. I'll just remind you of how hacky it was again. I think you'll agree that there are more pressing questions that need answering here than if he could have done this with a 5-bullet AWP. But for the sake of this video, yes, it was done in just 5 bullets, and the enemies knew roughly where he was, so he wouldn't have given away his position by reloading, but he would have given away that he was reloading, and thus was an easy target for any enemies waiting around the corner to strike. So maybe he wouldn't have reloaded anyway, for that reason instead. This clip shouldn't have happened no matter how many bullets the AWP had, but I'm seeing so many blind or fluky shots performed in these scenes. Maybe players would think twice about doing these kinds of things if they had more limited magazine capacity, especially if doing so left them exposed sitting with an empty magazine in need of reloading, because you just know that's the moment the enemy will poke out and say hi. Or at least they would to me. It doesn't happen to these pros, I guess because they're pros, and because they kill their enemies with impossible shots. It isn't fair. This clip of Cadian is interesting, as post-update he'd be heading towards the enemy, close up, scoped in with the AWP, with just 1 bullet in his gun. But since he's on 2 HP, I don't think it matters how many bullets he has left. He's going for it regardless. And bear in mind it's 15-6. I think he's feeling pretty confident about his team's victory in this match, and really wants to make that 3-man he's already got into a legendary 4-man. He got lucky this time. I did say there were 3 types of clips, and this is the final sort that I saw, where many AWP shots are fired off in quick succession, which clearly wouldn't be possible post-update. No matter how finely you time your AWP reloads, this one couldn't have gone down like this had the AWP just 5 bullets in its magazine. Do Valve particularly hate these kinds of messy aces? Is it to give the scout, in a similar instance, an extra benefit over the AWP? Nah, I think I'm just reading into this too much. I think this update was needed because people didn't take reloading the AWP seriously before. Plays like this are merely collateral from such a change. So with all that out of the way, let's quickly look at other iconic AWP shots. This one by Device in overtime would probably have happened just the same, and is proof you don't even need 5 bullets to pull off an AWP ace. Terrorists win. This 4-man by Nitro would still have been possible and likely would have gone down similarly, especially when he knows there's just 1 enemy left and has several teammates around him to keep him safe. This scene by Device could have gone either way in my opinion. Yes, he fired 6 shots in this instance, with the 6th being the one that really mattered, but equally, he had loads of time in which to reload after the first 2. He didn't bother because he still had 8 shots left, but had he only 3, then maybe he would have done. Like I said, it's right on the cusp. His back is covered by a teammate, and he had plenty of time to reload, but instead chose to keep a close eye on short in case the enemies pushed. This one by Kenny S required 6 quick AWP shots, so wouldn't have been possible. So I feel this one would have been one of those iconic moments that would never have happened with a 5-bullet AWP. But Valve has a long history of pushing updates to nerf Kenny S, so I don't think they'd have been too upset about this one. Post-update, if Simple didn't take the time to reload while running through apartments in this instance, then he'd have been in a hell lot of trouble later on. He would have moved slightly slower with the AWP equipped if he had decided to reload, and you can see here that he's moving with his knife out and shows some urgency to try and engage the enemies from balcony as soon as possible. So it's anyone's guess how this one would have played out with a 5-bullet AWP. It really boils down to how important it was that he re-entered the fray as soon as possible, and how much difference a second or so would have made. And lastly, while I've already covered Cold Zero's ludicrous display on Mirage, I'll show it again here. And I'll say it would have played out exactly the same had the AWP only 5 bullets, but he'd have been in a lot of trouble had Taco not been there to finish off Hiko. But what really struck me about this clip, having rewatched it, wasn't the number of bullets the AWP may have had or hadn't. It was the 15-9 scoreline, how unlikely it was that Luminosity would have been able to hold on, the doubt in the casters' voices.
And how do you come back from this?
Even the lack of utility. But the number of bullets in the AWP, it could have been 10, could have been 5, and the play would have still been possible. In fact, it might have made this clip even more incredible.
Right now, how does he do this? Can't to save Luminosity with the AWP play, unthinkable scenes there.
So, in conclusion, inconclusive in-clips investigated. Dropping from having 10 to just 5 metal fingers in the AWP's giving box is certainly a sizable nerf, and it will have prevented some of the iconic plays we know the AWP for from having ever been played in the first place. But who knows?
Maybe the new AWP with its leaner, meaner bullet capacity will lead to a new playstyle, one less bulked out with lucky and fluke shots, one based around fewer and surer shots, and with more emphasis on preparing for the next engagement. And maybe this new era for the AWP will bring about its own highlights.
Jesus Christ!
One thing's for sure though, whoever worked on the reload animation is going to be very happy for their work to finally be seen. Something BMW indicators.